Thank you, Chair. We're live streaming on YouTube, so I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Okay, good morning and welcome to East Devon District Council's Virtual Licensing and Enforcement Subcommittee on the 9th of February 2022. I'm the Chair, Councillor Joe Wibley, and I'd also like to welcome anyone watching the meeting via the live streaming. All participants here today are taking part remotely, and as well as being live streamed, the meeting is being recorded. So please bear this in mind throughout, and may I remind you to be careful with your language. May I also remind council members that the Code of Conduct applies throughout this meeting. We also reserve the right to remove and disconnect any participant who's disrupting the meeting by whatever means. As this licensing and enforcement subcommittee meeting is dependent on internet connection and power supply, in the event of a break in the internet connection or power cut, please bear with us as we try to reconnect. After 15 minutes, if we're not able to reconnect, we'll consider the meeting adjourned and reconvene at a later date. Please check the committee page on our website for details. And I'd also add at the moment that because I am doing this from a classroom in a school where I work, apologies for any noise and or fire drill disruptions that may occur, though none are planned. Accordingly, my first task this morning will be to ask a subcommittee member to act as vice chair in case I experience any such difficulties with IT or children during the meeting. All councillors have been sent the agenda for today's meeting. Any members of the public who want to view the agenda can do so by visiting our website at eastdevon.gov.uk. In the interest of all parties present, so that the virtual meeting runs in an orderly manner, please bear in mind the following points throughout. Please make sure all phones are turned off or are on silent, and make sure all microphones are muted when you're not speaking to avoid any background noise levels. The meeting's being streamed on YouTube, but please do not have the YouTube streaming on at the same time, as you'll not be able to hear or be heard. Please keep points short, do not repeat points that have already been made, and do not interrupt other speakers. The chair of the meeting will advise when it is the turn of each of the participants to speak. So for the purposes of confirming that the meeting is quorate, we'll now do a roll call of members present.
So Councillor Alan Dent.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Joe Wibley.
I am here, yes, thank you.
And Councillor Tom Wright. Oh,
He's
Tom?
disappeared.
Yeah.
Tom?
Tom.
Present, yeah, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. So Chair, I can confirm that the meeting is quorate.
Excellent. So our first task this morning is to elect a vice chair for this meeting. Would anybody? Tom,
I'll nominate Tom Wright.
Oh,
okay.
I was going to nominate you because I did it last time.
Okay, I will take Tom's nomination to keep it fair.
Right.
So Tom, you are nominating Alan as vice chair. I second that, and that's all of us. So I duly that Alan is elected vice chair for the purposes of this meeting. Well, there we go. Okay, so agenda item 1, the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 24th of November 2021. Councillors, if anyone has a comment on the last set of electronic minutes held on the 24th of November 2021, could you raise electronic hand? If your electronic hands, I'll take this as an indication that you all agree the minutes of the previous meeting. Excellent. I see no rush to raise a hand, so those minutes are agreed. We have no apologies because we're all here. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Does any member have a personal or prejudicial interest? And please now indicate by raising your electronic hand. Okay. Thank you very much, members. Item number 4 is matters of urgency, of which there are none. And item 5 is confidential or exempt items, again, which there are none to discuss. Okay, so we now move on to agenda item 6, the main event, which is an application for the grant of a premises license to allow the provision of films, live music, recorded music, performance of dance, and the supply of alcohol for consumption on the premises only at the West Point Centre, Cliff St Mary, Exeter, EX5 1DJ. This is a time-limited premises licence application from the 10th of June 2022 to the 12th of June 2022. Okay, so this is a hearing into an application for the time-limited licence at the aforementioned dates. The applicant is Starlight Concerts Live Entertainment Limited, and the address is as just outlined. So the members of the subcommittee here today are Councillor Joe Wibley, hi, Councillor Alan Dent, and Councillor Tom Wright. The Mrs. Barber is the licensing officer here today, and Mrs. Jenkins and Ms. Thompson are the Democratic Service officers who will be taking note of the hearing and running a live stream. We also have Giles Salter, who is the council solicitor, acting as a legal advisor to the committee. So is the applicant or the representative here?
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent. So could you confirm your name, and do you have anybody else that you'd like to call at all?
So my name is Nicholas Conrad Brain, but happy to be referred to as Nick for this call, and I am on my own today for this hearing. Okay,
that's great. Okay, and you are the Managing Director of Starlight Concerts Live Limited?
Correct, yes.
Brilliant. Okay. So in terms of responses from the responsible authorities, the licensing authority has received representations from the following responsible bodies. East Devon District Council's Environmental Health Service have submitted a representation with recommended conditions for noise levels in compliance with widely accepted criteria stated within the Code of Practice on Environmental Noise Control at Concerts. And the applicant has agreed to comply with these conditions, and these will be added to the licence conditions and operating schedule. In terms of interested parties, 2 local residents have made written representations, one of which was later withdrawn. One representation remains for consideration from Mrs. Susan Scott, but she is unable to attend the meeting today. So subcommittee members have read the documents submitted by the parties in advance of this hearing. Any document that anyone has brought with them today may only be submitted to us if all the other parties to the hearing agree, as required by the hearings regulations. Anyone wishing to introduce further documentary evidence should make that request immediately before they begin to address us at the subcommittee. And the maximum time for any party to address us, including witnesses, will be 10 minutes. So when addressing us, you should not raise any new issue not covered in the representations you have already lodged with council, nor should you raise issues which are not relevant to the promotion of the licensing objectives at issue in this hearing, which are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, and the prevention of public nuisance. The written representations we received from the remaining interested party appears to relate principally to the operating schedule relating to the prevention of public nuisance and noise nuisance. And to that end, the proposed traffic management plan ensures that attendees can leave quickly and quietly at 2300 and not cause a disturbance. It also relates to the prevention of crime and disorder. Provision is made for transport away from the site for those ejected from the venue for inappropriate behaviour or under the influence of drugs and alcohol. And there is an accessible telephone number to provide contact to the event for local residents. So when we have a discussion where I think it helpful, I may choose to lead that discussion as it may be the most effective way of identifying key concerns and possible solutions. I wish to avoid formal cross-examination, though with a number of people present, I don't know how that's possible. I will allow questions at appropriate points. Okay, so Giles, the subcommittee's legal advisor, will briefly go through the procedure for today's hearing. So, sorry, Mr. Salter.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to be called Giles. Good morning, everyone. My role then is to set out how this hearing is going to happen. Given that we only have the applicant with us. So as I understand it, the licensing officer has nothing to add, and unless the committee has any questions for her, she is available. So as we only have the applicant, we'll hear from the applicant who can set out his case. You may then have some questions to ask him about his application. There's no interested party attending, so at that point you can either have a formal sort of roundtable discussion, or you can retire to make your decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Giles. Okay, so as the licensing officer has nothing new to add, we will indeed hear from the applicant now. So you have Mr. Conrad Brain, you have 10 minutes to speak regarding the application, and you will be given a 30-second warning.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for your attendance today. It's much appreciated. I have little to add to the application that I put forward, but what I would stress is that I have the utmost sympathy with those who've come forward and have objected. They, as you know, only see a simple notice, either in the local press or on a lamppost, and from that they have to react. So what they'll be unaware of is the fact that this is a concert which will play to no more than 2,000 people per day. So extremely light for a showground, which is apt at holding 30,000, 40,000 for the Devon show. So it's a very, very small area of land that we're working on. The license is for 4,000, and that's, as you know, just because the arbitrary figures of up to 499 and then the belts there on in. But it's going to be a sparsely attended event, and that's how it's designed. It's a bijou, small family friendly festival, which focuses on all ages coming out and uniting around the music of our heritage and our lives. So acts like the Beatles, ABBA, Queen, Elton John, not the kind of music which usually attracts representations from the police or attendance from authorities. I would also just stress as well that as we have a track record working with mainly local authorities, the likes of Guildford Borough Council, Ada and Worthing Council, Norfolk County Council, Bristol City Council, and so on. We have a track record around the country dealing with working on public land, though I accept this is not public land, and also the sympathies and the sensitivities that come with that for local residents. And we have no ambition, in fact it would be counterproductive to go into a local market and to frustrate local residents, because we wouldn't be appearing next year. And what I would add here into the discussion, into the mind of the committee, is that this is a one-off license, it's time limited. So elsewhere across the country, I have an open-ended license. So if I cause disruption or disturbance, then if I seek a license again next year, there'll be further conditions attached to it, including remote monitoring and so on. So I have no ambition to cause you any problems, or local residents any problems at all. In terms of noise, which has been the major thing that has been picked up upon, the reason that local residents are objecting, or two residents objected, is we've already leafleted the area to tell them that the event is going ahead. So we've given them advance warning from December that we're coming in with this concert in June. We've also done a second drop in January, and we'll do a further drop later, closer to the event. That has a telephone number on it. That
Sorry, can I just interject there? I've lost connectivity briefly, and so could you just go back to you talked about no ambition to cause problems for the public. Can you just sort of go back and say what you were saying from there, because haven't got a note of it.
Absolutely.
Sorry about that.
No problem at all. So the point that I was outlining was that the reason that people are objecting is that we've gone above what our legal remit is to notify the public. We've already done a leaflet drop in the local area. And we're doing a further leaflet drop in January. We've done a further leaflet drop in January, and we've got another one coming as well. It's there just to warn the public, to say the event is on, and it's there to give them, the residents, a local telephone number. Now, the first one just outlines that there will be a local telephone number. The next leaflet actually has the local telephone number on it, because if I hand it out in December, they'll have got rid of it by June. And it's also very much so present on the comms that we will give the council to make sure that your out of hours aren't harangued over the weekend, on the West Point Arena website and on our website as well. So it's and on social media, so it's prevalent. And that's there to say, come and talk to us. If you've got a problem, come and talk to us. And we use it for two reasons. One, because we can try and mitigate the issue at source. And secondly, because we want to evidence that we're on the right side and we're complying with the license. The license conditions that have been put forward by Environmental Health, we've adopted. Interestingly, actually, it's the only example that we've got across the UK of wording like that. So I had to bounce it off our sound consultant. It means that we have to come out in advance and take the ambient sound to balance against for the event. was quite interesting actually for us. So Paul Budden, who is he's a consultant for BCP Council in Bournemouth, where we work. They're one of our clients. And he's coming across and he will be monitoring the sound for us. The showground itself is no less sensitive than any other area that we operate. However, actually it's more sparsely populated than some of the other places that we operate, like Kings Park in Bournemouth being a very good example. And what I've done this year, so I'm going to give you an example of last year we operated in Stoke Park, Guildford, right in the middle of Guildford, surrounded by 100,000 people, 84,000 to be exact, living in that area. And we took 6 complaints. So 84,000 people living in that area, 6 complaints, 6 formal complaints, which we thought was a great result. But we actually had to work with the council to try and mitigate 6 people, which, as you can imagine, is a bit of a nightmare for us. So we've made some changes this year to our operating procedures. We're lowering the height of the stage from 12 meters down to 7 meters. We're pinpointing the sound further in, and we're bringing the arena. So we're trying to stop sound spread. So we're doing everything we possibly can, because we work with local authorities, to do 2 things. 1, to stay on the right side of residents because politically it's sensitive. 2, to not give councils a headache because, as you can imagine, they've got the electorate to answer to, and indeed the local press to answer to. So we're very much so in the remit of being on the side of local authorities. So again, I know it's not a local authority owned asset, but still hopefully that gives you some kind of confidence in our ability to deliver. And I think our track record speaks for itself. Across the country last year, we faced no major issues when it comes to sound. We're not a huge festival. This is not the Elton John concert that I often hear about that took place at the West Point Arena. This is much smaller. It's less ambitious. The infrastructure is much smaller. And I'm absolutely confident we'll be able to keep to the objectives in the licence for a number of critical reasons. Most importantly, small attendance, so a smaller area to cover our sound over, and also the nature of the music doesn't give me cause for concern. If I was offering Stormzy, if I was bringing in Doja Cat, we'd be having a completely different conversation now. But this is family friendly and it's lowbrow. And even though I reference those artists, I have promoted people like that in the past. And obviously the conversations I have when I am doing those kind of gigs is completely different to the conversation that I'm having with you now. And finally, I want to come to Exeter for many years. I think it's a fantastic city. I think it's a perfect platform for our product. I ideally would like to return year after year with exactly the same thing, and have the support of local residents, for after all, they are our customers. So if I get this wrong, I lose my customer base.
Okay, thank you very much. I must say, Councillor Dent looks disappointed Stormzy's not appearing, but hey.
I feel sorry for the cat, whoever he is.
The Dojo cat. Yeah, that's the fella. Okay, thank you very much for that. That's very useful indeed, and an interesting background into what you've done previously. Do we have any questions from members to Nick at all? Councillor Wright.
Yes, thank you, Joe. It might surprise you, but this sort of environment is something I'm very familiar with. Having been the police commander for Milton Keynes, I was responsible for the policing of things like Queen, Status Quo, John Bon Jovi, Bowie, Michael Jackson, Vixen, who were a wonderful Swedish girl group. Yeah. So I was very much involved at the pre-planning stage of those. And looks, if you like, wearing the worst case scenario, one thing we concentrated on there very much was ensuring that should something go wrong, there was very adequate emergency lighting. Now, I know this is in June, so it's going to be light until well after 10. You know, is the promoter, is the applicant happy, or can he let us know what the procedure is for emergency lighting, both at the venue and what we found was more important, in the car park? So, because that goes on into dark, and if something goes wrong, it's very necessary that there's lighting that people can see and work by. Otherwise, it sounds like a good event. Thank you.
Okay, that's all right. Thank you for that. Milton Keynes is a very interesting area. Actually, I know the bowl very well, and in fact, I was involved in trying to open up the bowl again for live concerts and performances, which is something an aspiration that I hope they managed to achieve in Milton Keynes. In terms of your recommendation and your assessment, I think it clearly comes from a place of understanding how the industry works, because you're spot on. It's a problem that we have right the way across the country. It's all very well having car parks, but if they're not sufficiently lit, then they can be unsafe environments. I hope it gives you confidence. I don't know what your relationship is with the West Point Arena, but it's the West Point Arena that operates the car parks. So for June, we will have natural light at 10:30 at night, but it will be dim. The risks are people will have been drinking, and in some cases on the Saturday, they may well have been drinking for a prolonged period of time. So there'll be a degree of merriment, and that of course is going to hamper their assessment to make safe judgments. In terms of sufficient lighting, the West Point Arena and us independently bring in tower lights to reinforce the static lights that they have already erected around the perimeter of the arena. So we'll bring in generator-based weighted lights, which are flown across the arena, that pass out of the car park and in the car parks themselves. We anticipate for this event probably taking no more than 500 cars. So if that is the case, then we're actually illuminating a very small area, which from a practical perspective, of course, makes our job easier and probably makes the environment safer. And in terms of assessing risk on the way out, the way in which we operate is we funnel through a small exit. Now we have the ability to, we have Harris fence, even though we're inside the major fence, we'll have Harris fence around the arena. So we have the ability to open it up in case of a fire so we can get people away quickly. But we try and funnel people through a small area. And the reason we channel is because then we can look at people leaving. We can assess people who may well be intoxicated and are not making the best decisions for themselves, may well cause us problems. And also it's very clear on our domestic violence pledge as well, that we can see individuals who we think and feel may well cause problems as they make their way back to the car towards, believe it or not, very sadly, people inside their own social group or indeed their partners. And in terms of aggression at our concerts, we've had 0 rating for 2 years. The only one rating, the one event we did have was a husband who very sadly decided to take out his aggression on his wife, and we had SIA guards there very quickly to be able to sort out that issue and to remove the risk. So we'll funnel out of that area. Now that means that we have an ability to watch and to see, and then it's marshaled back to the car park as well and illuminated. So you're absolutely right. It's a very good observation, and it's one that's very much so in our core event management plan. And it goes without saying, of course, this is going through SAG. We have had one SAG already, but that was for the event last year that indeed was cancelled because of the government staying in stage 3 restrictions. So this will go through the EMP has been provided to the SAG, and this will go through the SAG process again. And this is very much so an area that I should imagine they'll pick up on.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Right, I was going to say, do you want to come back on?
That greatly reassures me. So things like tower lights are the things that I'm used to with big generators, and that, you know, having seen 50,000 people turn out of Milton Keynes Bowl, I'm aware of the issues. Thank you very much. I'm reassured and satisfied by that explanation. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, so Councillor Dent, Alan.
Yeah, I think you pretty much covered what I was concerned about, and that is I've been to a number of events at West Point, and getting out after the event has always been probably the biggest issue, because everybody tends to funnel into the same small space, and then there's chaos, and that's exactly what the residents, Susan Scott, raised. But I think if you've only got, you reckon, 500 cars, presumably most of those will be coming in and out, going out throughout the day. They won't all be there at 11 o'clock at night. So I feel relatively reassured about that. The other question I had was about the removal of people if they're misbehaving. Well, you've covered that already by that example you gave, and also reassured us, I think, that because of the style of music and the family event, it's unlikely to be a big issue, and drugs and so on are not likely to be a big issue. So that's very encouraging, and I feel much better. Thank you for that. And you've also reassured us on the accessible contact number. So I look forward to what might be a really great, interesting event in a good arena, good place for it. Thank you.
You'll have your flares on, will you, Alan?
Yeah.
I'm just disappointed Vixen aren't there, if I'm honest. But hey, okay, that's great. So I think that's I have no further questions. And as there are no interested parties present, I'll just ask the applicant if there's any further you'd wish to say by way of a final statement.
The only thing I'd say is I reiterate my point that there's a great safeguard on this license, which is it's time limited. And so therefore, if we don't comply, if we don't do as we say we're going to do, then of course it should be rejected next year, or there should be stiffer penalties put in place. And I reiterate my desire to make sure this is a successful and most importantly, safe event for East Devon. And as a company, we trade on our reputation. It doesn't matter to us at all if we're working on a public park, a private estate, a showground, regardless of where we're operating. We go through the SAG, we work with the local authority, and we really welcome interaction with the local authority. And already I can see from the environmental team, we've had an exchange about exactly where we're going to monitor sound, how we're going to monitor sound, which is great. And I'm very grateful for that. And who knows, from this discussion this morning, maybe in 2023, it will be Joe, you could headline, and seeing as and Councillor Wright have already put forward their preference for acts, I'll have to redraw the lineup for the future years.
I wouldn't describe what I do as classic music that everybody would love. So I think I'll have to. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, you flustered me a little bit there. Okay. So thank you very much. I think I'd like to thank the applicant and advise the subcommittee. I'd advise you that the subcommittee will notify all parties of the decision within 5 working days. So that brings our meeting to an end, and I'd like to thank everyone, including any members of the public watching online, for taking part. Can I just remind all those present that the sporting officer will confirm when the meeting's no longer being recorded or going live. And until then, your